I'm going to do something that all of the Big Ten coaches did this past week. They're all talking about schedules, and everybody's like, Indiana's got a soft schedule. And like, for example, why would nobody talks about Missouri's schedule from last year, right?
Yep.
Like Missouri in the SEC, they played Vanderbilt, A&M, they played Auburn, who was not good, Alabama, which was not a great Alabama team. They played Oklahoma, who was not good. South Carolina might have been the toughest team that they played. Missouri all year long. They played Mississippi State and they played Arkansas, right? And so like this is the thing, right? These are the questions that you ask. Why isn't it like that? And so for Indiana, they kind of made a point of saying that they're going to schedule favorably in the non-con if the SEC is only going to play 8 conference games. 100%. And this conversation kept popping up about scheduling and what the approach should be. And the reason why is because of the biggest story, which was CFP expansion and Tony Petitti and how he feels about it. And basically he said that, in terms of whether the Big Ten and SEC are going to agree on a future format, he said, we're obviously not in the same place on these discussions. I think the goal would be to bring the people back together. Every time the two leagues have come together, good things have happened. But he also emphasized that he is not in favor of a format that gives any more decision-making power to the playoff committee.
And very emphatically, too.
Yeah. I mean, when you were listening to that, when you were talking to some of the coaches kind of as you were bopping around, what were you feeling in terms of the scheduling, postseason format, all those different things?
I love that there was an alignment from Petitti down through the coaches and echoing the same sentiment. Everybody felt like, hey, we're playing 9, they're playing 8. This conference has proven it's the best conference in football given what's happened the last 2 seasons. There is a confidence that was across the line exuding from all the main figures within the conference, which was refreshing to me, having been a guy who was covering college football just a few seasons ago in the ACC, and it felt like a one-man band with Dabo's group, and there was a little bit of vibe from Norvell in that flash-in-a-bottle season, but there wasn't a confidence in the conference as a whole. Being back in the Big Ten, a conference I covered for a lot of years back in 2005 to 2014, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember this. And now you're back when it's got all that juice again, too. So they're saying we need 4 spots in this playoff because teams like Illinois, teams like Indiana, teams like maybe a Michigan, teams like maybe a Nebraska or USC, if they end up overachieving, are teams that, because of what our conference is, could end up having 3 losses and need to be in a playoff because they could be dangerous. I like that vibe. Because we've seen it so much with Sankey and the SEC. Once a narrative is carved, it catches on like wildfire. And all of a sudden, people are just like, it's just, I guess it's mainstream media and how it works, where people just go, oh, yeah, SEC is the best. So I like that Petitti and the Big Ten are saying, no, we're going to get this out there right now. We're top dog. And look at the last 2 years, and we need that respect. I love it.
But it's super interesting because Petitti was like directly asked about, whose conference is superior. And he didn't even, he said, we've won the last 2 championships. I like the guys that we have. I'm not going to get into that conversation. But just the way that you said it, the Big Ten right now, I think, is in lockstep. Like they know they're top dog. They're trying to move as if they understand their top dog, but it's not something that they have to say. And I'm not doing this to like punch at the SEC, but these dudes literally will print materials to hand out at conference media day with, factoids about scheduling and why their schedules are more superior and why they don't need to go to a 9-game conference schedule and about all the national championships that they've won in the last 20 years or whatever the case is. And I thought it was pretty refreshing. Some people maybe thought it was a little bit weird or robotic, but to hear the coaches come in and basically express all of the same things. And this is if you're Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State and Michigan. This is if you're Iowa and Wisconsin and Minnesota. And this is if you're Northwestern and UCLA and some of the teams that are, just trying to get things back figured out. The other thing, and I think it's a point that they haven't made enough, but they need to continue to make, is in a conference with 18 teams, the ability to have the play-in weekend, which was talked about. And a lot of people are like, well, how come the team that finished third or fourth in the conference should have an opportunity to get knocked out. Those are also the same people that said, well, who did Indiana really play in the Big Ten?
Mhm.
Right. And so to balance things a little bit more and to also have really good TV inventory at the end of the year, they talked about this this play-in weekend, and I think it's a super intriguing idea.
Well, I think you're kind of also seeing direct correlation parallels with Petitti saying this should be an NFL type playoff format.
Right.
And last time I checked, people love the NFL playoff format, and people love expansion with a good product. So I really don't see an issue, for at least from our vantage point. I mean, this is a conference we're covering, and I think there's great basis points to support Petitti's argument. But I'm lockstep and key with everything he's saying. Like, I just feel like this is exactly a legitimate argument, and for good reason. You're going to see quality football, teams that deserve to be in there and can make some noise.
Yeah, one of the points was about, if one of the teams who gets knocked out, let's say you were like the third best team in the Big Ten, and you get knocked out by 6 in the play-in, and so 6 is now a team that was 8-4 in the regular season. People are like, well, do they really deserve to be in? And Petitti's making the point that, in the pro leagues, sometimes you get teams that aren't even 500.
Wild card teams win Super Bowls. 9-7 Steelers have won Super Bowls that way.
And my biggest argument to the people who would be mad about an 8-4 team getting into the college football playoff is you should have never expanded the damn postseason. Right? Because it was a sport before where that would have never happened. But this is what you asked for. You asked for this possibility anyway. So now we got to live with it. So if this is a world that we're going to get to, I actually think this is the right format. And I've mentioned this before with Nicole, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But I think this actually is a benefit if you're the ACC in the Big 12, because you have the guaranteed spots. And I'm actually not a huge AQ guy, but I do think this makes the most sense if we're trying to figure out how we can preserve some of the, the ability for everybody to get in on a regular year. Because if you're leaving it up to the committee, they're putting the one ACC, probably 2 ACC, maybe 3, but they're giving you one Big 12 team, and that's all you're getting.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for. I do think the pageantry of the sport, like your alma mater or your team you root for, is yours. But there's also a pageantry behind the conferences. I think people are ACC people are Big Ten, people are SEC. I like, no matter what that number one team is coming out of that conference, I'd like to see that style match up with another one, because it can still, styles make fights. And as a basketball guy, that's what I came from with the March Madness, that tournament, and how it's aligned. It may not be the most talented team, but their style matches up kind of nice with said conference's team, who has a better record, who has more talent, who's maybe outperformed them all year. And it provides for a good matchup in a sport that is king in our country. So I'm okay with that completely. I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, and to your point, like the conference champs from the last playoff, we saw, an Arizona State that was able to go toe-to-toe with Texas. And some people would say that if the officiating in that game went a little bit differently, right?
That one, what was it? A rough in the pass interference late in the game?
Yeah.
Dictated everything. I mean, that could have gone Arizona State's way.
It could have very easily. And then Clemson, they had some juice when they went out there in their first round game as well. Believe they played Texas in that game, right? Like, they can. So it's not to say that the top tier teams in those conferences can't compete, but there is that question about how many of those teams you think could get into the postseason.